You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.
What is going on, Los Angeles? Happy holidays. Merry Christmas from everyone at the LA Football Network. This is the LA Football Show. We are live on the Mightier 1090 ESPN Radio. You can always catch us on the LA Football Network, LAFBnetwork.com, your destination for Los Angeles football. Like and subscribe the show, if you will, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. We have team-specific YouTubes, LAFB, Rams, Chargers, USC, UCLA, or LAFB Network is the main channel. And of course, as mentioned, LAFBnetwork.com. I'm your co-host, Ryan Dyer, joined as always by the ever-spirited Jamal Madney, the Madman. What's up, brother? Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. How are you on this fine, beautiful holiday season?
Doing well, Ryan. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to you and your beautiful family and all of our viewers. This is the best time of the year. I'm so happy during the holidays. You and I have talked about this a bunch, where I wish the holiday spirit lasted all 12 months of the year. I think so many challenges in our world today would magically go away if we took kind of a holiday spirit and a holiday mentality to our day-to-day interactions. But it's such a special time of the year, and always so fun to be talking about football in LA going into the new year. Some good, some bad, some ugly, some compelling, but it is LA football, much like LA theater. It's Hollywood after all.
Absolutely. So for all of our podcasts and video viewers, this is your Rams segment. We're going to talk about the Rams-Packers game and look forward to that Christmas Day matchup with the Broncos. For radio viewers, we'll do Rams, and then we're going to get into UCLA. Then we're going to get into, on our third segment, the Trojans and the recruiting trail. And we'll finish up with a Chargers Monday night clash with the Colts. So, show as always brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. You're going to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first time deposit. What better time to win some extra cash than the Christmas season? You can make up for, money spent on gifts, or hopefully win yourself a gift by winning some extra money on some of these games. So betonline.ag, promo code BELIEVE. Got a real barn burner for this Rams Broncos game. Could be a 3-2 final, although the Broncos have found a little offensive magic here as of late, which we'll get into. But anyway, betonline.ag, promo code BELIEVE. Tell the guys at the LA Football Network sent you. All right, Jamal. So before we get into we'll talk Rams Packers a little bit, and then we'll get into the preview. But before we get into it, we teased it last show earlier in the week. You got to do a little Christmas special. Me and you love Christmas so much. I am such a movie guy. You are as well. I absolutely love Christmas movies. I started watching Christmas movies on November 1st. So I'm probably now, 35 to 40 movies deep of the Christmas season. We go hard in the paint with the Hallmark and Lifetime editions, but obviously the classics are all within our repertoire as well. So that'd be fun if we do our top 5 Christmas movies of all time. We don't have to spend a ton of time. We can kind of go back and forth a little bit. So give me your 5, then I'll give my 5, and we'll go snake-like from there. So your 5th favorite Christmas movie of all time.
Oh my goodness. Okay. A lot of people don't consider this a Christmas movie. I vehemently disagree. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. There was one weekend when I was 15 years old that I watched this movie like 8 times in a row over the course of a weekend, and that is Die Hard with Bruce Willis. It was a transformational movie because in film and cinema history, it was actually the first time that the bad guy, the terrorist, the enemy, if you will, came to sort of domestic soil. In the history of American cinema, it was always the enemy was far away. You went to the enemy. This was the first movie where the enemy came to the hero's location, if you will. And it was just such a transformational movie during the Christmas season. Bruce Willis kills those terrorists and then puts a Santa hat on them and says, ho, ho, ho. Now I have a machine gun. So absolutely a Christmas all-timer for me.
Yeah, that's a great one. Not in my top 5, but a classic. I do consider it a Christmas movie. Always a fun debate every year when that comes up. So for my 5th, a little bit of a newer one, and I kind of stumbled upon this recently, and now I watch it every Christmas Eve. I started. My wife worked in hotels for many, many years, and unfortunately, anyone that has worked in the service industry, you work a lot of holidays. And I always worked in restaurants, but luckily the restaurants I worked for were always closed on the main holidays because they were family owned. So I was blessed to always be closed on 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Labor Day, all those. So I was always off on Christmas. She, for the first 3 or 4 years of us dating, worked every Christmas Eve. And so this movie came out, I found it on like Apple TV and watched it by myself and kind of fell in love with it. And it's The Night Before. I don't know if you've seen it, with Seth Rogen, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Anthony Mackie. Just a little bit raunchier Christmas movie, more adult friendly. It's not a family flick by any means, but so many good little nuggets in there. The jingle, what is it? Jingle Bell Ball, they call it, that they're kind of get tickets for. And so yeah, I'm going to put Night Before, a little newer, but so many good gems, and just the sweaters they wear, hilarious. So The Night Before, my number 5.
Love that. Well, Ryan, I got to segue into number 4. This may actually be higher on some other folks' lists, but it's just an all-timer for me. And I think it's in your list as well. But one of my all-time favorite movies with one of my all-time favorite characters in a comedic role for a very few times in his career. That was Joe Pesci and Home Alone. I mean, Home Alone was just iconic in terms of Christmas and just, the interactions there. And for me, there was so many seminal moments there that I could sort of equate with my childhood when that movie came out. And Home Alone is just an all-timer for me.
So great. Do you rank the second one close to the first one, or is it first by a mile?
I actually ranked the second one close to the first one. I think that in the history of sequels, you're always sort of disappointed. But Home Alone 2 was a very underrated film. I have Home Alone 1 when I think of kind of the top 5, but Home Alone 2 is a top 10, top 15 type of movie in terms of Christmas for me.
Yeah, I think they're both great. So, and you said it perfectly. We were actually talking about it with my family the other night, that it's one of the few series that, take out the third one, but the first 2, or maybe we were talking about in Vegas, actually. Maybe it would have was us, about how it's actually 2 that are pretty close. So great movie. Also not my top 5, surprisingly. But my 4, this is a Dairud family tradition. Obviously, I said The Night Before was kind of my tradition I started. This is a Dairud tradition that dates back to when I was just a little kid. Every Thanksgiving, after our Thanksgiving meal, after football's over, we throw on Miracle on 34th Street. And that's continued on into now my family with Monica and Mia. And so Miracle on 34th Street, the original is great, but we grew up watching the newer one. And so that is a tradition every Thanksgiving evening. Love that movie. I've never missed it on a Thanksgiving in 32 years on this earth, or I guess probably the younger years I did it, but since we started it, haven't missed it since. So love it. It's a classic. It's a great storyline. I believe in Santa, so it's great. So Miracle on 34th is my 4th.
That's so great. That's so great. Ryan, for me, number 3, and I think now is the time where my wife's influence is starting to really play a role. And, one of the effects of marriage is that, you start sort of thinking a little bit more like your spouse. And so now I think my top 3 are much more sentimental. They're a little bit more sort of rom-com-ish, but I actually have a secret affinity for all rom-coms. I tell people what my top 10 favorite films are just to sort of save grace from sort of an image perspective. But I have actually like a secret top 10, which is, the same tastes in movies that I have of 13-year-old girls. But nevertheless, number 3 for me is The Holiday. And, Cameron Diaz and that whole just concept of switching homes, going to different parts of the world, finding yourself there, falling in love. I just thought that The Holiday was a terrific film. And it was the one film where I saw Jack Black as like a credible character in this like sensitive, profound way. So I'm a big fan of The Holiday. I'm a big Cameron Diaz fan in general. So The Holiday is number 3 for me.
All right. Well, I won't say much about it because it's in my top 5, but it's not 3 for me. So that will allude to, it's higher. Number 3 for me is another classic. Fantastic. So many storylines that now there's been knockoffs for other holidays because of this movie. None other than Love Actually. I mean, what a great flick with all the different stories going on. The British guy coming to America. You got the prime minister. You have the family that's the kids in the Christmas pageant or the Christmas story that she's like a lobster for some reason, and so many great fun things. And it's always fun. It's almost strange to consider a British film a foreign film because it's in the same language, but technically a foreign film outside of our borders. And so it's fun to, see different traditions across the seas and stuff like that. So Love Actually, always a classic, and my number 3.
Well, Ryan, you and I are going to do a little sort of swap here because Love Actually is in my list and it's higher than 3. So I think we know where this is going. For me, number 2, Ryan, is I'm going to take it all the way back as a child, just sort of the purest of movies, if you will, and take it into sort of cartoon land. And A Charlie Brown Christmas is
nice.
To me, just there's no film that kind of speaks to the innocence and the idealism and just the spirit and devotion of the holiday season the way Charlie Brown's Christmas does for me. So that one is number 2 for me and brings out the child in me. And I think that we should all sort of have the child come out of us at different points in life and at different points in the year.
Yeah. Great one. Another classic. So my number 2, so this is a drum roll because everyone is guessing if it's the holiday or not. Number 2 for me is Elf. I love Elf with Will Ferrell, James Caan. There's a story out there that James Caan was so against doing this movie and Christmas movies in general, being a, classic in the Italian mafia movies and kind of a badass kind of guy, and read the script and was convinced enough by Will Ferrell to do this role. And obviously it's an iconic Christmas movie that is nearly 20 years old now, which is insane. Or maybe it is 20 years old now. But Will Ferrell's just an absolute icon in the industry, and obviously USC alum. So we love him out in LA regardless. And so Elf, that's one we watch. Yeah, you're catching a trend here, Jamal, where you have traditions with these movies. Every Christmas Day is when we watch Elf. And it's just such a fun, carefree Christmas movie, which is just, it embodies everything about the Christmas season minus some of the other stuff, but involving just Santa, their North Pole, and everything fun about Christmas. That's what it's all about.
Oh, I love that. And that's actually my wife's all-time favorite Christmas movie is The Elf. So, completely agree. And so for me, Ryan, numero uno, I think we've sort of alluded to it earlier, but for me, it is Love Actually. And I think when you intertwine all of the stories of all of the different couples and all of the different relationships, and you sort of place it in one of my favorite parts of the world, London is a city that I could live in. Honestly, I love it so much. And you just see kind of the different elements of the human condition. And some are yearning for love. Some are taking love for granted. Some, are in sort of the wrong situation. Some are in the perfect situation, but it's not perfect. And just there's just so many elements of human nature and the human condition. And then when you sort of overlay that onto Christmas, it's just a really powerful, sweet film. And so for me, Love Actually is numero uno.
So good. Obviously, it's my 3rd. You mentioned Jack Black, his role in The Holiday. Liam Neeson with like a soft role in Love Actually. I was a little taken aback by how well he played the stepdad there.
Well done. But you know what, Ryan? What's interesting about the whole Liam Neeson phenomena is his role in these romantic comedies was who Liam Neeson was up until Taken. And then Taken sort of transformed him into, this more sophisticated, Matt Damon and Jason Bourne, and just I've never seen an actor completely change identity in such a compelling manner at such a late stage of their career as Liam. And he's just so amazing, where now he's so good in action that you forget that his origin was really in these rom-coms and these nuanced characters with a lot of depth and a lot of love and soul and sensitivity. So it's really remarkable.
Yeah, so true. So, well, my number one is the holiday. You said everything about it. I love it. I love the swap, the different cultures that clash, the love that's found, the unexpected love. And, I've ever since that movie, I've always looked into house swapping to see if that's a real thing and wanted to do it in some different city across seas and stuff. So, yeah, the holiday. So won't say much because we're already going to run out of time. We got to get into the Rams here, Jamal. So we got like 5 minutes here to cover the Rams, which
That's
is okay.
about right.
Yeah, that's about right the way the season's going. So let's not even touch on much of the Packers game. Obviously, tough loss. The Rams battled, so too many mistakes, unfortunately. The defense played well overall, but did give up some, drives here and there. And, but they got some turnovers that the offense was unable to capitalize on. Baker Mayfield, I didn't think looked terrible, but definitely the shine kind of wore off from that heroic against the Raiders. And this was kind of to be expected when you have a brand new quarterback and a new system, that there's going to be growing pains. And when you play in a place like Lambeau, that's tough. So tough loss, but I don't think anyone should be surprised by it. But now we head to a Christmas Day game against the Broncos, two very underwhelming teams that came to the year with very high aspirations. Obviously, Rams being defending champs, trying to run it back. Broncos with all they did in the offseason, hiring Nathaniel Hackett, bringing over Russell Wilson in the big trade, signing some big free agents, having another really good draft class. Expectations were definitely playoffs, potential Super Bowl dark horse. And obviously they've kind of fallen flat in their face. And both these teams have similar storylines in terms of injuries. ESPN has ranked each one as 32 and 31, Rams being 31 in terms of the amount of injuries and effectiveness towards their team. So overall, Jamal, what are you looking for in this game on Christmas? I don't think there's going to be a lot of presence that we're going to get for this game, but hey, it's still a football game and both teams that we get to watch.
Well, Ryan, I think what I'm looking for is there's a lot of historical significance actually in this game with regards to the Rams' place in defending champion lore or infamy, if you will. And so right now, the worst record for a defending champion sits at 6-10. So 10 losses is the most losses that a defending champion has had. And ironically enough, it was the 1999 Broncos, the year after John Elway retired and the Mile High Salute dynasty sort of came to an end, given Elway's retirement. And so now it's the Broncos playing the Rams to essentially have the Rams be in that role of getting that 11th loss, because the Rams, if they can win out and finish 7-10, they avoid that distinction. I'm just looking, Ryan, for more competitiveness. I've seen a really nice competitive spirit the last few weeks, given the personnel. Sean McVay has talked about finishing this season the right way, the only way they know how. I thought they competed exceptionally well against the Packers in Lambeau Field. I think the weather played a big role. And Baker, it was a regression back to the mean, which what you and I had kind of predicted, that he's great in these sort of emotional situations. You throw him in there in these improvisational situations. But then when things calm and settle again, and you need that more calming influence and the ability to execute, that's where over the course of his career, he has struggled a bit. 12 for 21, only 111 yards, the one touchdown, the one interception. And that game really kind of swung those first two drives in the third quarter with the Packers. I think what I'm really looking for in this game is the ability to control the ball, because where the Packers really were able to thrive was those last three drives, Ryan, that they had in the second half. The Packers, they basically chewed up the entire second half. I mean, that last drive, they got that interception off of Mayfield at the Rams 39-yard line and then chewed the last 8:51 off the clock because they were just able to run the ball and control the line of scrimmage. And so I expect the Broncos to try and invoke a similar strategy there of being able to kind of control the line, run, and then have those play action with Russell Wilson to Judy for these big plays, almost a la like the Eagles. I think the Broncos have kind of found an identity a little bit here offensively at the end of the year, where they want to control the line of scrimmage with that zone running and then hit the big play with Judy on the outside. And Wilson seems to have a real nice rapport, and obviously he's been in and out of the lineup with concussions. So for me, I'm looking for the Rams to be able to use Cam Akers, use Kyron Williams to really be able to sort of control the time of possession to make this a competitive game. But I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge, Ryan. I see this ultimately going 20-6 Broncos. I think that Broncos defense is just one of the three best defenses in football. The Broncos are starting to get a little bit more comfortable on offense. And I just think it's trending upward for the Broncos in a way that it isn't for the Rams. Now the Rams going to be without Ben Skro, without Brian Allen. I mean, they're picking up guys off the street to finish the season here. So hard for me to pick the Rams, but hopefully they can just be competitive with a competitive spirit. But I like the Broncos winning by double digits.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Les Snead and others in the behind desks are going to be suiting up for this one just because they can't have enough bodies, and I know they're signing guys off the streets coming in. So it's tough sledding. And you mentioned about the Broncos, and it's amazing with all the injuries they've had, just how good that defense still has been. They just put Draymond Jones on the IR as well. They're now the league leading with 23 people, 19 current on the IR, and so the offense obviously had their struggles. Obviously, they're only a 4-win team, but the defense has absolutely been a top 3 unit all year long, which says a lot about former Rams secondary coach Evero, who's just done a fantastic job. So per usual, we're out of time already. So I know it's a short Rams segment this week, guys, but it's a Christmas special. We got to get some Christmas stuff. It's still going to be a fun football game. I think it's going to be tight, but I think the Broncos do prevail just because I think they've shown enough on offense, and that defense is just so dominant. But it should be a fun one. Don't worry, Rams fans, we'll have plenty of Rams talk next week. We'll go a full actual segment, so do not fret, but everyone have a blessed Christmas season. We're going to take a quick break for those on radio. We'll be back at the bottom of the hour for some USC talk, but for those Rams fans on podcast, have a very Merry Christmas from the LA Football Network. We'll talk to you all soon.
You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.